Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be showing you how to fly, start, and navigate the CH-54 Chinook helicopter. This is a pretty neat helicopter, and they did a pretty nice job on it. There's a lot of things that don't do anything, if that makes sense, compared to the DCS version of this, but it's still a really neat helicopter. There's a lot of capability. We're sitting here in this lovely grass field here, so we got ourselves a nice compact environment to do a little bit of experimentation of, and it should be pretty good stuff. So first things first, we're going to run over here. We're going to pop off all the pitot tubes, and of course I got to crouch in the grass here and I rip off the chocks. But that's about all there is to the exterior. So I'm going to press my Shift C and go ahead and climb inside here. Pretty good sized office. I'm just going to double check to make sure my controls are fairly neutral right now, and you can take a look at that right now. There's a couple things you'll notice. If you try to wiggle your controls, this guy will move okay, but you'll notice your collective isn't going anywhere. And again, that's because there's a bunch of little pieces that we need to worry about. This helicopter is a good mix of old and new if you're kind of trying to approach it like sort of come to terms with what you're dealing with. You'll notice the instrumentation is a pretty old school here, but we do have a couple little doodads that make things a little bit easier for us. There's a couple other little things that make it kind of fun too, and that's the fact that we have circuit boards and circuit breakers up to gazoo. You can actually pop these out if you choose to do so. So just double check to make sure those are in. So first things first, let's get the party started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by flipping my head up here. I'm going to go ahead and hit some lights real quickly here. We're going to let everybody around us know that we are going to be getting started real fast. Hit those two switches. Then we're going to come float down here, and now you can see we've got a good old-fashioned battery. So I'm going to pop on the battery real quick. We're going to come to the APU switch, and we're just going to go boop, and that's it. That'll get the APU running. If you listen way, way behind me, you can hear the APU boots up pretty much right away. We're going to turn on the APU. That's basically the generator for it, and that's pretty much ready to rock as far as that goes. So with that all set, one of the things we can do here is we can quickly check to make sure we have control. I can click on our two power transfers. Makes that weird little noise, everybody's favorite Airbus noise. Give everybody a wiggle to make sure that works okay. It looks like everything's moving pretty fine for us. So I'm not going to worry about it too much there. I'll go ahead and pop that back off after we did a quick little test. And again, if you're in an emergency, it's kind of a handy feature. All right, GPS. Hey, it works this time. Press enter a few times and let that kind of figure out where we are, so to speak. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get everything started. A couple different ways we could do this. And that's one of the things I find kind of interesting about this helicopter is we can basically run everything off of one side, which I find kind of interesting. Like, it's just a little different the way that it works. And you take a look at all these different feeds here, and you can basically run everything off of one set of fuel pumps if you need to, which is kind of neat. And if we wanted to do something like that, we could basically pop these switches on. Again, if we're carrying extra things in the forward tank, and then we could open up the cross feed, and that would actually get us fuel on this side for both engines if we needed to. If we're not looking to do that, of course, we can do a regular fuel pump so that our left side's powered in the left engine, or the left, yeah, you know what I mean, engine 1, I should be more specific here. And then engine 2 is powered by all of our pumps on this side. The reason they'll do the cross feed here is just for safety in the event that something fails. We can basically keep having those engines running. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get everything started. It's a relatively straightforward experience as far as starting. I had a little bit of weirdness when I was playing with it at first, but I kind of got the hang of it pretty quick once I went through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab these big handles here, and we're going to pop the engine control levers into the ground position, just like that. Then what we're going to do is, no matter how carefully I do this, I managed to always hit the switch wrong. I'm just special, I guess. So I'm going to grab the switch, and we're going to crank it over to one side, and then I'm just going to let go. And you'll notice that if you're not careful, it will snap to the other side, and it hits both engine starts at the same time. Welcome to that fun. Coming down here, what you'll notice here is everything's pretty much automatic. They didn't go very complex on this engine start. We don't have to fiddle with the throttle or anything like that. They just did it the easy way. You can see here, we're coming up to speed pretty darn quick. A little bit warm. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong there. There's our idle power. Our transmission pressure is coming up. You can, of course, if we wanted to check the different pressures, we could run in here and run through this real quickly, just like that. We can get a good idea of how that's going. Oil pressure's coming up. Everything's good. Fuel consumption's going up because obviously everything's running, and you can see our RPMs coming up quite smoothly. Make sure your collective's on the floor before you do that. Otherwise, you're going to jump up into the air. So just be mindful and kind of careful. Once that's all set, we can go ahead and pop on the generators, shut off the APU generator, and of course we can shut the APU off itself. We don't need it anymore. It's done a really, really nice job of kind of getting us going. So ideally what we do is we let everything kind of smoothly sort of warm up for a few moments here, make sure we haven't made any boo-boos, but looks pretty good. Like I said, we got our park and brake set, so I'm not too paranoid with anything along those lines. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pop that into the wrong position. Now I'm going to top it into the flight position. Oh my goodness! And you'll notice here that it will lock out on you when you try to snap that in that position. If you click and drag, you'll notice it does not let me do it. If I right click, you'll notice that it sticks in. When you do that, now you can put it in the position that you need to. So again, you're going to right click on it, drag it to where it needs to go. Whoop, not to the stop position. Ah, I hate it when they make it awkward. Oh my goodness. On, right, down. Come on. There it goes. Hey, we got it that time. And then I'll right click it again to keep it in the flight position. I love the fact that they took the time to add that little bit of realism to that switch. But my goodness, folks, you're going to make that mistake a couple times when you're fiddling with it. Caution light is off. We're going to confirm that the two engines stayed on despite my shenanigans. And you can see they did. They actually did a nice job. Other little things we like to do kind of during this initial kind of getting everybody sort of set up here is if we wanted to, we can come down here. We can set our high altitude and low altitude. For example, I could set that to 50 feet. And I could set, again, if I needed to set my high altitude. Right now it's 1,500 feet, which is very, very high.
Check altitude.
Isn't that cool? So you can kind of sit here and you can basically fiddle with it if that's something that you need to do. I think it's a little bit too much fun to play with. But again, we're not on military missions here or anything like that, so I don't need to play with that too much kind of a thing. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go set up our navigation. Now, this is a GPS. It's a pretty straightforward unit, so we'll have a video kind of explaining it. But if we wanted to make a relatively simple mission here, we could just go like this. We could type in a destination KMSY. It's not too far from here, so I'll go ahead and shut off the little mode there. Press enter a few times, activate, and you can see that swings us around that way, and I can change the view to a more conventional. It's about 70 nautical miles for us, which is nothing in this helicopter. It's a very, very short, basically a hop. Make sure our transponder is set correctly. I'm going to swing over to my HSI real quick. And you can see there is a button here that will give us the ability to select a GPS mode. You'll notice I can click it all day and nothing happens. You'll notice if I come over here and I click this all day, that nothing happens as well. It's just kind of the way that they got everything set up on this particular unit. It's sad, but it does work. It does work. I also like the fact you can do bearing select and stuff like that. But you're just relying on kind of looking over your shoulder every once in a while. Like I can see my desired track is 310. So what I could do is I could come over here and I could basically set this to 310. You can definitely tell we've got a work in progress with this sucker, but it works. I have no problem flying it. I think it's kind of fun, especially if you want to do stuff. All right, let's talk about takeoff. This is a very, very, very heavy lift helicopter. It's not quite sky crane, but it's still got a lot of lift to it. So when you are taking off, of course, if I kill the parking brake here, you'll notice we don't go anywhere. If I tip the cyclic forward, you can see that we do everybody's favorite, kind of the hop. If you push your collective just a little bit, you'll notice the thing instantly leaps off the ground. Basically the minimum to get you airborne in this thing is nothing. So if I wanted to, for example, pivot a little bit in these nice muddy waters here of southern Texas, you can see just a little bit of collective will get you rolling pretty darn quick. This is a very, very, very stable helicopter. When I'm ready to go up in the air, all I do is pull back on the cyclic a little bit. We're going to go a little bit back and a little bit to the left. And all we're going to do is smoothly apply collective, and we're airborne. That's it. That's as much effort as this thing takes to get in the air. It's just like nothing to it. I also love that big log right there. I probably would have missed that if I weren't paying attention. And we're just going to settle in at a nice gentle hover. It's very easy to hover. This is a very, very large and amazingly stable helicopter. Got a little bit of that crosswind there, but nothing too bad. All right, it's feeling pretty good. We're only a little bit off the ground here. If I go to third person, you can see we're just kind of hanging there. We're not getting too high. I'm trying to stay away from that log. To get us going, I'm just going to tip forward, and we're going to apply a little bit of collective. It takes very, very little to get this helicopter going. Whereas the Sky Crane, it takes a little bit of a push to kind of move it. This thing, you just give it a tap, and it just rips. And you can see we are absolutely just ripping just like that. Absolute effortless as far as control goes. And we're basically going to swing up a little bit, and then we're going to take a nice gentle left, and we'll start making our way on our initial course. This thing is like, oh man, couldn't do better unless we had like a Huey. Now, if you can't hear, on the bayou right now, you're just missing out. Kind of swing this way. So operating this helicopter, one thing you got to remember is it's a very fast helicopter. A lot of helicopters, once you get to a certain scale, they don't move well. But this thing just goes. You can see here, I'm barely using any torque there. You can see my basically the radar altimeter going crazy right now, which I don't blame it. Take a nice gentle left turn here, come on to our cruising course. And we're doing 120 knots at not much altitude. I think it's at 67 feet. I'll just kind of roll out just like that. And that gets you an idea of just how fast this thing really is. You really do have to respect it. Now, when you're rolling around here, one of the things I really think is kind of cool, let me float down here, is this little gauge right here. I got to be able to look out the window. Right on my bottom left corner there. And it's actually got this nice little trim system here. And it actually trims it based on the speed that you're moving in order to make the cyclic less work for you. And you can see it's trimming quite neatly there. And it's doing a good job. It's got that little aft trim. It's got the forward trim. It's just a neat little gauge. And you can actually see exactly what it's doing as you're cruising ground. That doesn't mean this thing is a fly-by-wire helicopter, which it definitely is not, but it does mean you have that little bit of stability going there. All right, as we're cruising, you can see right now we're about 35% engine torque, so we're barely cracking the collective here just because we're so darn light. And you can see our fuel capacity over there on the left just kind of doing its little jingle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the nose over and we'll get a little bit of altitude so I don't hit a tree. About 360 feet. I'm just going to go ahead and increase collective gently here. I just want to show you one trick of this helicopter, which is kind of sketch. There we go. It's about 50% torque. Oh my goodness. Look at the deck angle. We're pointing 20 degrees downward right now. And all this thing is doing is picking up speed. You can see we're doing about 140 right now. Oh my goodness. This is so awkward. Look at the angle we're flying here. That is not safe. So as you can see, this helicopter is fast. I'm actually let going of the controls here just to give you an idea of how stable it is too. And 150 knots is not a safe speed for a helicopter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly reduce my collective here. And I'm just going to pull the nose up at the same time. We're going to try to do it smoothly. The people in the back are pretty mad at me right now. There we go. Come swing to my right there. Go back on my course. Man, give me a swamp boat. I'm feeling the need for it about now. There we go. Very nice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk you through the landing procedure on this thing as well as some quick little maneuvers. We just need to find a safe spot to land. That little spot right there, I think that's going to be perfectly good for our purposes. I like that. And what we're going to do is, as always, we're going to slow down first. So what I'm going to do is gently lift the nose. Again, we're not going to pick it up too hard, otherwise the rotor RPM will spike. And we're just going to be backing the collective off just about the same time. Again, you want to do this gently. This thing's going to lose speed fast. There we go. Go ahead and take our nice gentle right turn. I'm going to let the nose start coming down. When we turn, we lose speed very quickly in a helicopter. At about 60. That looks good to me. Very nice. Very, very nice. And as you can see, as we come out of this, the helicopter, because of the way the stability works, you have to kind of catch it. And now you can see we've got it just like that. Go ahead and take a look at our spot there. It's a pretty good sized spot for us. I'm not too worried about it. Now, bringing this thing on for an approach, a couple different things you want to keep in mind. As with all things helicopter, if you try to do something quickly, you'll find that it becomes harder to control and it becomes harder to react as things come flying at you. However, if you do things too slowly, you get a new problem where basically it becomes more difficult. It becomes more work for you because you're having to basically maintain a hover rather than just concentrate on operating the helicopter. So we can see our little landing spot there. I'm going to bring my nose up a little bit, stick my head down just a bit to kind of get our vertical speed under control here. There we go. And we're just going to do our usual stuff. Feel that trim kicking in and makes that nose lift just a bit on you. There we go. And you can see we've got ourselves going pretty slow. Got a little slow there, but that's okay. All right, this is where you get challenges. You'll notice the nice little ripples of the water there, just giving us an idea of how incredibly low we are. That island looks deceptively small. It's actually relatively large even for us. So what I like to do is I like to try to pick a point, just kind of use that as a reference. I've got that nice tree kind of on my left here as we're making our approach. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that approach. I like the fact we get the two little kind of spears poking out the front there so you can check for drift. And all we're going to do is we're going to do a nice gentle rolling landing. You're going to get this nice optical illusion as if you're going up. The reality is you're not really going up. It's just a matter of practice. So you're using a little bit of right foot here. Like I said, I think you'll find it very easy to control. All right, we can start our approach. So I'm just going to hold this relatively level. And what you're trying to do is basically run out of forward motion and run out of vertical motion about the same time. Unlike the sky crane, you're a little bit lower to the ground. So it's a little easier to settle this thing down. There we go. Coming in. Oop, there's the rotor and ground effect. Whoop. Nice and easy. Rotor and ground effect, rotor and ground effect. Whew. The last couple inches is always the last hardest. Hey, who left my window open? So once we're on the ground now, we're in pretty safe shape. We can drop off our cargo. One little fun thing you have here is you have this little ramp emergency. So in a pinch, you can actually sit here and grab this and crank it if you need. You got to turn on the emergency power. Hear it? Watch this, watch this, watch this. I'll go ahead and show you. This is just kind of cool. Now, if you look at the back, you can see we're ready to receive. Now we're ready to go ahead and get everybody out. So same thing as before. I'm going to right-click, right-click. We're going to go ahead and use the middle mouse button. Right-click, right-click. Click, click, just like that. Go ahead and kill the power here. We're going to pop the generators off. The jet that's already off. Go ahead and shut off all the switches that we do not require. That looks good to me. That looks good to me. We can pop off our lights too, although they're off already. And one of the fun things you could do is if you press Shift C real quick and you run outside the helicopter. I wish there was actually like you could hold down Shift key and just like kind of like sprint along. I love this little bubble for observation. It's just so cool. But now you can pretend like you're invading some country or something here. Unfortunately, when you climb back here, there is no way to actually get in here. But it does give you an idea of the sheer scale of this awesome helicopter. Enjoy.